Okay, so we're going to go over this chapter 4 test retake review. Quick review over the concepts. So first section, determine if the two triangles are congruent. If they are, state how you know. All right, so this first triangle here, triangle 1, you've got one angle congruent to an angle, another angle congruent to an angle, and then we've got a third angle congruent to an angle. The right angles are going to be congruent. In this case, we have three angles congruent to three angles, but there is no angle congruence postulate, so this one is going to be not enough information. Because remember, we're using angle side angle, angle side, side angle side, side side side, or hypotenuse leg if it's a right triangle. So if it doesn't fit any one of those, then we can't prove them congruent based on what they give us. All right, so then this one, number 2, I've got a side here, an angle here. So I've just got two things marked congruent. However, I do have a set of vertical angles here, and vertical angles are going to be congruent to each other. So that angle there is congruent to that angle there by the vertical angles theorem. And so if I look, I have an angle, and a side congruent to an angle, and a side. So that one would be possible by angle, side. And then this next one, I've got a side, an angle, and a side, marked congruent to a side, an angle, and a side. So everything's marked that we need in this case because we got two sides and an angle, and the angle is included between the sides, so that's going to fit with side angle side. And number 4, we got one side, two sides, three sides marked congruent, and so all three sides of one triangle congruent to all three sides of another triangle. That's going to be side, side, side. Alright, so next group, state what additional information is required in order to know that the triangles are congruent for the reason given. Alright, first one wants us to use hypotenuse leg. So that means it has to be right triangles, which we do have right triangles. And between those two triangles, we can see that VW is shared, so we would know that is congruent. So what the question is asking us is, what other piece that we can't prove is congruent just by looking at it would we have to know is congruent? So in this case, if we're doing hypotenuse leg, VW here is a leg, it's not the hypotenuse. So the other piece of information we would need is the H, right, the hypotenuse. So XW would have to be congruent to UV. All right, number 6. Once again, we've got a shared side, so we would know that is congruent. Angle MPQ is marked congruent to angle RQP. So by angle side angle, we need two angles with a side trapped in between them. So I've got an angle and a side. So the other place I need an angle is on the other end of this side, which is going to be down here, or on this triangle is up here. So those will be identified as angle MQP, which would have to be congruent to angle RPQ. So we get this angle congruent to that angle. All right, number 7, complete the congruent statement by naming the corresponding angle or side. All right, so these two triangles, says triangle PQR is congruent to triangle VRX. So if we follow the order the order of the names here tell us the order of the things that are congruent or corresponding to each other. So by that, angle P matches up with angle V. Angle Q matches up with angle R. And angle R on the other triangle matches up with angle X. So then down here it says angle P is congruent to, so angle P is here, and it matches up with angle V. And we get that just by following the order of the letters here. All right, number 8, write a statement that indicates that the triangles in each pair are congruent. So here we're just writing the congruent statement and making sure that we put all of the corresponding parts in order. So I'm looking at the angles. I'm going to go in order of the arcs here. So 1 arc, 2 arcs, 3 arcs, 1 arc, 2 arcs, 3 arcs. So that's going to give me triangle GEX congruent to triangle GEF. In that order. Then the same process for number 9. Yep. 1 arc with 1 arc, 2 arcs with 2 arcs, and 3 arcs with 3 arcs. So I'm going to go in that order. So triangle STU is going to be congruent to triangle HIJ. Number 10, we're solving for x. Right, so they gave us 2 angles and then an angle that has an x in it. So following the rule that the sum of all the angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. So all 3 angles added together in both of these triangles should equal 180 degrees. So that's going to give me 65 plus 70 plus x plus 54. That's all the angles added together. They have to equal 180. So if I add those together, 65 and 70, 135 with 54 is 189 plus x equals 180. Subtract 189 from both sides, and my x value is going to be -9. Number 11, same process, add the angles, set them equal to 180. 60 plus 40 plus x plus 85 equals 180. So that's 100 plus 85, 185 plus x equals 180. Subtract 185. X is going to equal -5. And this next one, it's the same kind of concept, but we're just finding the measure of one angle. One difference here is that we do have right angles here. So in a right triangle, we don't have to add everything up to equal 180. We can just focus on the 2 acute angles, and the 2 acute angles added together should equal 90 degrees, since this angle is taking 90 away from 180. So we're going to solve for x, and then it wants the actual measure of angle A, so we're going to have to plug that in. So x plus 39 plus x plus 69 is going to have to equal 90. So that's going to be 2x plus 108 equals 90. subtract 108. 2x equals negative 18. Divide by the 2, we get x equals negative 9. And then we plug that in with the value for angle A, which is x plus 39, which will be negative 9 plus 39. Or the measure of angle A here is 30 degrees. All right, same idea for the next one. We've got 5x plus 5 plus 5x plus 5 equals 90. Because it's a right triangle, we can just add it 2 up to equal 90. And so that's 10x plus 10 equals 90. Subtract 10 from both sides. 10x equals 80. And divide by 10. X is going to equal 8. And then plug that in to solve. And we're going to have the measure of angle A. It's going to be 5 times x, or 5 times 8, plus 5. The measure of angle A equals 40 plus 5, which is 45 degrees. Okay, 14 and 15, we're finding the measure of each angle indicated. So we're still basing things off of 180 degrees in a triangle. We used to have 2 triangles attached, so a little more complicated. Number 14, we're trying to find this angle where the question mark is. We only have one other angle in this triangle, so we can't just solve for it by subtracting 2 angles from 180. We have to use this triangle here, where they gave us 2 angles. Once we know these 2 angles added together, we can subtract that from 180, and that'll give us this angle. And then these 2 angles are vertical angles, so whatever this angle is, the angle down here is that same angle. Add those 2 together and subtract from 180, and we'll get the angle in question. So 180 subtracting 73 plus 26, or 180 subtracting 99 will equal 81. So my angle right there is 81 degrees, which means that its vertical angle is also 81. And then we're going to do 180 subtracting those 2 angles added together. 81 plus 77, or 180 minus 158. It's going to equal our question mark. And so 180 minus 158 is 22 degrees, is equal to our question mark angle. And then 15, we got 2 angles in this triangle. We got a right angle given in this one, and this question mark's over here. So first thing we're going to do is figure out this angle right here. So 36 plus 89 subtracted from 180. So it'll be 180 subtracting 125. So it's going to be 55 degrees. So 55 right there. Now, we have a straight line here, so we know that's a total of 180 degrees. We have these 2 angles going together to make that straight line, but we've got one more angle to get. So this angle right here is going to be 180 subtracting these 2 angles. So 180 minus 55 plus 65. That's 180 minus 120, which is 60. And then for the last angle, now I know two angles in this triangle, so these two subtracted from 180, or since this is a right triangle, I know that the two acute angles have to add up to 90. So 60 plus the question mark is going to equal 90, or subtract the 60. And my question mark is going to end up being 30. All right, moving on. 16 through 19, just simply classifying each triangle by its angles and sides. Equal sides and equal angles, if any, are indicated in each diagram. So the tick marks are going to indicate what sides or angles are congruent to each other. So first one, we've got two sides marked congruent and two angles marked congruent. So that is going to be an isosceles because it's got two congruent sides. And if we look at all the angles are smaller than 90 degrees. So that's an isosceles acute triangle. 17 has nothing marked the same. No sides are marked congruent. So that makes it scalene. And then with it being scalene, this angle right here is bigger than 90 degrees. So that's going to be scalene obtuse. It just takes one obtuse angle to make it an obtuse triangle. And 18, once again, we got two sides and two angles. So it's going to be isosceles. And if I look at all the angles all appear to be acute as well on this one. So this one is again an isosceles acute triangle. And then the last one, 19, all three sides, all three angles marked congruent. So it's an equilateral, meaning all three sides congruent, and equiangular, meaning all the angles are congruent. 20, find the measure of each angle indicated. All right, so in this one, we got a 105-degree exterior angle. We got a 26-degree angle here at T, and we're trying to find the measure of angle S. The rule we want to remember here is the exterior angles theorem that tells us that the measure of an exterior angle is equal to the sum of the two non-adjacent interior angles. Or in other words, 105 degrees, this angle. All right, so I'll find the measure of each angle indicated. So that 105 is supposed to equal S and T added together. So we'll add those together. 26 plus whatever that question mark angle is equal to 105. Subtract 26. And that angle is going to be 79 degrees. All right, next one, 21. Very similar, just a little more difficult because we've got some x's added into the problem, but we're still just solving for x on this one. So the outside angle, the exterior angle, 14x. should be equal to the two interior angles added together. So 7x plus 10 plus the 60. So 14x is going to equal 7x plus 70. Subtract 7x from both sides. That'll give us 7x equals 70 divided by the 7. And our x value will be 10. Alright, 22 through 25, just find the value of x. Alright, so when I look at this first one, we got 6 and x. We notice the two angles down here, those would be base angles being congruent. And the rule we learn is that if you have two congruent angles, then the sides opposite those angles are congruent as well. So those two sides are going to be congruent, or simply x is going to equal 6. 23, same idea, two congruent angles, so the sides opposite those angles should be congruent. So x in this case equals 8. And down to 24, in this case we've got two sides that are marked congruent. So we now know the converse of what we just dealt with was true, that if you have two congruent sides, then the angles opposite those sides are going to be congruent as well. So we can just say x equals 74. And 25 is the more difficult version of these. We've got the two congruent sides, so we know we've got two congruent angles, and those are the angles opposite the sides. So that means that angle with the x in it is congruent to this angle over here. So nothing there. We can call that x. And so to solve for the x, now we need to remember that all three angles add up to equal 180 degrees. So 38 plus x is going to equal 180 if we add all three angles together. So 38 plus 2x equals 180. All right, 38. So 2x is going to equal 142. And divide by 2. X is going to be 71 degrees. Or 71. All right, so that completes the little re-review of Chapter 4. Study and good luck on the quiz tomorrow.